definitely show my pens. This is the 2018 Jeep Grand Cherokee, but no, not just any Grand Cherokee. The Grand Cherokee Trackhawk. And not just any Jeep Grand Cherokee Trackhawk. This one produces a measly 900 horsepower. My God.
Fastest SUV on the planet? Well, that goes to the Tesla Model X, which I had the pleasure of driving a few years back.
But that one buzzes absolutely noiseless to 60 in 2.9 seconds. Of course, it's electric and lame. If I'm gonna go apeshit quick to 60, I want it to make some apeshit noises when I do it.
Then last summer, I had the pleasure of driving the second fastest SUV on the planet, which did in fact make all those noises, the Lamborghini Urus, which hit 60 in around 3 seconds.
But that one will cost you at least another 100, 150, maybe even $200,000.
I would think this one would be quicker anyways, with its extra 220 horsepower. It sure feels faster than the Lamborghini anyways.
Here we go. Holy shit.
The Jeep Grand Cherokee Trackhawk is absurd. It's a family hauler, practical SUV, and supercar-destroying drag strip monster with a freaking Jeep badge on the front. It's the greatest excuse for a family car there is. This thing takes Hellcat Challenger sportiness and adds parental practicality and merges it into one absolutely psychotic package.
So we start with the motor. And a V8 in a Grand Cherokee isn't anything necessarily too out of the ordinary. In 1998, Jeep released the Grand Cherokee Limited 5.9, which was a warning shot into the madness that would come in the future for Grand Cherokees. And that naturally aspirated 5.9-liter V8 produced 462 horsepower less than a factory Trackhawk produces. 655 horsepower less than this Trackhawk produces. So you could add the combined powers of the 5.9 Limited and a factory Trackhawk to reach the power that this thing is making now. The Trackhawk is of course powered by the 6.2-liter Hellcat V8 engine, injected with air by a 2.4-liter supercharger. Last week, I reviewed a car with an entire engine that was less than 2.4 liters. Of course, in its factory form, this produces, you already know, 707 horsepower and 645 foot-pounds of torque, which is actually 5 less torques than the Charger and Challenger Hellcat due to a more restrictive exhaust setup. They wanted the Trackhawk to be not as loud and obnoxious as the other ones. After all, this is an SUV. Yeah, sure, let's keep at least one thing tame about it. But, as I said, this isn't a factory Hellcat engine anymore. This one, thanks to a rip-attuned pump gas killer pulley system, makes, 900 horsepower. And this is what a decatted 900 horsepower Trackhawk sounds like. In most manufacturers, they put electronic limiters on their vehicles, but Chrysler just didn't. They put no limiter on that Hellcat engine. They just let it go and saw what it could do. And what it did was 180 miles an hour. And that's stock. There's no telling what this thing would do with 900 horsepower. And don't look at me, I'm not finding out. I'll come right out and say I lack the testes to do so. Can you fathom doing 180 miles an hour in a Jeep Grand Cherokee? We are living in some very strange times, folks.
Now, the Grand Cherokee Limited 5.9 that I mentioned earlier would hit 60 in 6.8 seconds. And it would do the quarter mile in 15.2 seconds at 88 miles an hour. Jeep claims the Trackhawk will hit 60 in 3.5 seconds. And it will annihilate the quarter mile in 11.7 seconds at 116. Now, other journalists did claim that they got the Trackhawk to get to 60 in around 3.3 seconds, which is staggering. That's faster than the Challenger and Charger Hellcat. This thing is just madness. But the really crazy thing is, it's not all madness. From the outside, it's somewhat hard to decipher that this is one of the most powerful SUVs on the planet. It does have a few changes to differ itself from the also very fast SRT Grand Cherokee. At 15.8 inches, the front brake rotors are 0.8 inches bigger than the naturally aspirated SRT Grand Cherokee. They are massive. I'm pretty sure you can still get a Toyota Camry, a new Toyota Camry, with 16-inch wheels. And the brakes on this thing are 15.8 inches. It's just insane. Both the SRT and the Trackhawk use 6-piston front and 4-piston rear Brembo brake calipers, but the Trackhawk calipers get a yellow coat of paint. Want a different color? Well, Jeep says, and I quote, "Tough shit, pound sand." Just kidding, of course, but yellow is the only color you can get for your calipers on your Trackhawk. Yellow calipers are just one of the few exterior tells of the Trackhawk. Other things include the deleted front fog lights, and in place of where they should be, one side is hollowed out to be an oil cooler, and the other side to be a cold air intake. The rear fascia was redesigned to accommodate those massive quad exhaust tips. There's a small Trackhawk emblem on the rear liftgate, and a small supercharged badge under the Grand Cherokee badges on the front doors. You also get Trackhawk logos on the seats, and on the sill plates, and on the steering wheel, and the floor mats, and you get a 200-mile-an-hour speedometer. Not something you normally see in a Jeep. And even though this thing has 900 horsepower, it still retains all the practicality you'd expect from the Grand Cherokee. The rest of the cabin is pretty much just standard Grand Cherokee, which is a very good thing. That's because it's spacious and it's comfortable. There's a reason it's one of the best-selling SUVs in the country. And I love the seats in this thing. They are so comfortable, and of course they have extra bolstering in the Trackhawk. You could tell they were built for the bigger or wider Americans to be nice. It's just a very nice place to be in here. It's very well put together, especially sprinkled with all these carbon fiber bits on the door panels that flows around over the dash, and then onto the other door panel. And down below here in the center control stack, there's an Eco Mode button. An Eco Mode in a freaking 900 horsepower SUV. What the hell is that thing gonna do to make this thing more economical? Is it gonna turn it off? And up above here we have the 8.4-inch infotainment center. Don't worry, I measured it myself, and it's one of the best infotainment centers in my opinion. I've driven mostly all of the Cherokee and Grand Cherokee models with this Uconnect system, and it's super easy to use. It's responsive, it's clear, but in the Trackhawk, it's a computational piece of art. You can view any piece of information that you could want to know, and you can watch that data update in real time. It's a statistic junkie's dream. Horsepower, live dyno, 0 to 60, 0 to 100, quarter mile time, reaction time, everything is in here. But it's still so practical. We've got a full-size rear seat here that even my lanky and awkward 6'5" frame can fit comfortably in. And behind those rear seats, 36 cubic feet of cargo space and 68 cubic feet of cargo space with the rear seats folded down. Now, cargo space is cool and all, but what you'd rather hear is this, launch control. Like the Challenger Demon, the Trackhawk gets the torque reserve function to aid with launching. So with launch control engaged and the Jeep brake torqued, meaning your foot all the way down on the brake and the gas, it cuts fuel to specific cylinders, which allows the engine to rev higher and the supercharger to build more boost in the form of 6.4 PSI as it sits at the line. And once you take your foot off the brake, the Jeep will spin all 4 of its 295 series
Continental
tires as you accelerate towards certain jail time. So you just press the launch control button down here to get it set up, double check that your seatbelt and your diaper are both securely fastened, and then hold on for dear life. Give it full throttle,
Off the brake. Holy shit. I have never been in a vehicle that spins all 4 tires. The launch is somewhat scary at first. It throws all of the weight to the back. So when you launch, the nose is looking like at the sky. The whole thing just like lurches and goes. You're in an SUV, for crying out loud. What an experience. It feels like there's something grabbing my ears and just pulling me back, trying to put me in the trunk. It's un-freaking believable, this thing. Now, I've driven the Challenger Scat Pack, a very good and very fast car with almost 400 less horsepower than this. I can only imagine the Hellcat Challenger and Chargers. But even though it's the same power plant, besides the 5 less foot-pounds of torque, it's an entirely different launch experience. And that's because the Challenger and Chargers are burnout machines. It's rear-wheel drive, and it's hard to get 707 rampant and slightly obese American horsepowers down to the ground without making it look like you popped a smoke grenade behind each of the rear tires. This is all-wheel drive. Granted, it still does a little smoke show when you go to launch because it's got that much power. In much quicker fashion, it hooks and it goes hard. Most of us can agree there's really no need for something like this. $100,000, 700 plus horsepower Jeep. But I'm sure we can also all agree, I'm damn glad they made one. God bless the person who said we need a 700 horsepower Jeep SUV.
Most likely, Chrysler's going to produce SUVs in the future that are quicker than this. But I can almost guarantee they won't sound like this one did.
Massive thank you to my friend Ben for allowing me to review his 2018 Jeep Grand Cherokee Trackhawk with 900 horsepower. This is an experience I will surely never forget. And thank you very much to my friends over at Northeast Auto Imports for setting this whole thing up. I'll include links in the description below to their website and social media so you can check out the very wide array of interesting cars, trucks, and vans that they have available for sale. But I will see you guys in the next one. Happy motoring, and goodbye. I need to control myself.